It's a 60-minute drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all
The band is back together here on The Last Word. And of course, I am Jeff Barnes along with Greg Rector and the no longer missing Brock Vieira in the house. You know, guys, it's been weeks since we've all been together for a show. So how you guys been?
Well, Dabo Sweeney lost again, so that makes us both very happy, right, Brock?
Very, very happy.
See? That's all we need. Just a Dabo Sweeney loss. That's all it takes.
Matter of fact,
See?
I would say it wasn't just Dabo Sweeney that lost today, amongst many. The ACC as a conference lost today. The number one team in that conference is not only a new team at SMU, they are a team that the ACC doesn't really consider a true member in terms of revenue sharing. Sure, they're getting a lot more than the former conference, but they're not really getting as much as some of the thoroughbreds they believe that they have. Yet they're their best chance of going to the college football playoff. Isn't that so funny how that works out?
To all of the games, as far as all the major shakeups and everything else, we got 4 big games to talk about. We get to talk about the Colorado Buffaloes as well. We'll make sure we sprinkle a little of that in there, you know.
Okay, yeah, Prime's got a 7-2 record. That's all fine and dandy.
Oh, here we go.
I'm not sold on prime time. I'm sorry. I'm just not.
Pouring water on the fire. Listen, the 7-2, the way they were going when they got beat by Nebraska, when they got beat by Kansas State, people didn't think 7-2 was in the works, but they did it.
Yeah. Hey, that's where they're at.
I think the skepticism of Colorado is based off the field things more than necessarily their performance on it. Yeah, they had a horrific performance today against Texas Tech, but Texas Tech is a really good football team who has had some very impressive wins this season. And when you look at the way the conference is shaking out, there's a good chance Colorado could be in that Big 12 championship game when everything is, done and dusted.
Yep.
Indeed. So we have some current games going on. We just had one game wrap up. Oregon just topped Maryland 39-18 is the final there. That just went final. Greg, you're dancing around in the background. We can see the little Celtic feet moving underneath the desk there as the Irish are up 38-3. Bama just
Of course.
35-6. Bama all over LSU in the Bayou. Boy, oh boy, there's some gumbo being made tonight, and it's made out of tiger.
And they even brought a live tagger to the stadium for the first time since 2014 or something tonight.
See, that's flirting with disaster. You don't bring wild animals to this.
Yeah.
No. All right. So 33-14, Tennessee leads Mississippi State in that one. So we're going to get into some of the earlier games. But most importantly, guys, let me talk about one more score. How about Missouri leading Oklahoma 16-9 in the fourth? Lowest scoring game that we thought. Penn State all over Washington 28-3 heading into the fourth there. Boise in a dogfight with Nevada up 21-14. Pitt trailing UVA, wahoo 21-13. That one in the third. UNLV, you're running Rebels, Brock, up 12-10 in the second over Hawaii. Air Force and Fresno State are tied at 7 in the second. BYU and Utah are still early in the first, no score. All right. So let's talk about the first of the early games today. We're going to get into And that starts with, of course, Iowa State and Kansas, the big upset here. Kansas, who had 2 wins coming into this matchup, now 3-6 after knocking off Iowa State at home. We have a Jalen Daniels sighting. Not the most impressive completion percentage, 12 of 24, but 295 passing, 2 TDs. And, Rocco Beck had a great game. Unfortunately, 36 wasn't enough versus Kansas. Guys, give me your thoughts on this matchup here.
I'm stunned, to say the least, that Kansas put up 45 on Iowa State. It's Iowa State has got such a good, solid team from top to bottom, and for them to give up 45 points is just a bit of a shocker to me. But look, Texas Tech came in and beat them last week, and they were primed for another loss, and it happened.
How about you, Brock?
Yeah, Iowa State started out the game very well, going up early 7-0, and you thought that perhaps this could be the catalyst for the Cyclones to, get past the Jayhawks, especially since they're playing at Arrowhead, far away from, Kansas's fan base. But the fans showed up and showed out, and you saw finally this offense come together. Jaden Daniels at the end of I believe the first quarter, or it might be midway through the second, had over 120 passing yards and 3 score, and Kansas had 3 scores or something like that. And after that, they really just dominated from that point on. Iowa State is kind of a vacuum in the sense of we don't exactly know how good or how bad the Big 12 has been, just because it's been so sporadic throughout the years. And for a long time, we thought Iowa State could be a team that could be in the Big 12 championship game, and they very well could be. Does that mean if they lose and BYU wins out and goes undefeated, the lack of another legitimate contender means that the conference only gets 1 team into the playoff? I think that's what we're looking at because of this loss today.
It was already only going to send 1 team to the playoff, Brock. You had 4 Big Ten and 4 SEC schools already in the lineup. You've got 1 ACC and 1 Big 12 school, and that's it. That's all.
Well, that's not necessarily the case, because the SEC is already eliminating each other. You can make the same argument about the Big Ten.
Yep.
I'm not saying that they're not going to have, but I'm saying 4-4 is a bit of a stretch. I can see 3-3, but 4-4 at this point, at this season with these records, I think that's a bit much, especially with some of these big games coming up.
Yep. Yeah, but again, the way that these guys do their playoff and their rankings and all this other nonsense, how Indiana was so low is beyond me. Indiana should have been the 6th seed. Bottom line, not Penn State. And
that's branding. I mean,
yep.
The only difference between Indiana and everybody else is the fact that they're Indiana.
Yep.
And in name, So
that's right. They're a basketball school. They're the basketball school. How can we rank them that highly in football? Well, geez, I don't know. Because they've beaten up on everybody that they played.
Sure, but right now we're looking at a scenario, especially in terms of the ACC as well, where we don't exactly know what's going to happen. I mean, right now Miami suffered their first loss of the day to Georgia Tech. And then the SEC, like I said, is all set to collapse upon each other. Alabama is about to defeat LSU. Texas and Texas A&M are set to play at the end of the season. Tennessee and Georgia are set to play next week. So we could see a scenario in which we possibly, if Boise State wins out, of course, wins the conference championship and finishes the season with only 1 loss, which would be a 3-point loss to Oregon, could we see a potential another non-Power 5 team after the playoffs? I think that today's loss to Kansas really opens up a bunch of possibilities in the college football landscape, amongst other results.
Well, what those losses, especially the Iowa State loss, did, it put Colorado in the driver's seat to head to the conference championship. And we were talking about this right before we hit the air. I mean, Colorado, whether you like it or not, has come out. They've gotten hot at the right time. They're winning in conference, which is most important. You look at their 2 losses, both outside of conference. So doesn't matter when it comes to conference title. Right now, they're in the driver's seat. As long as they get through these next couple of weeks, you're going to have Colorado competing in the Big 12 championship. Colorado wins that, they're automatically in a playoff. So you could have Deion Sanders taking a Colorado team in its 2nd season to the college football playoff. Very interesting for a team that last year started hot, fell off real fast. now potentially a playoff team. So we talk about their big win today versus Texas Tech. Pretty gritty win at that, a little sloppy with a lot of the penalties, the craziness with the fans throwing stuff on the field. I must say, though.
And no, don't call those people fans because those are the fanatics that make the fan part become worse. I don't care what stadium you're at, what event you're watching. Don't throw stuff on the field, on the ice, on the court. Just don't do that stupid stuff. It is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And this is a byproduct. Now, the fans who did throw out to blame, this is a byproduct of the lack of accountability by the referees in the Georgia-Texas game. And for them to do what they did back in that game, to reverse a call because they were afraid of what a riot, and has unfortunately had a chain reaction event. And now we're seeing it across the league. I just saw it at LSU like 20 minutes ago. So, definitely I agree with everyone you're saying, but this is unfortunately a byproduct of a lack of strength, a lack of a show of strength by the refereeing crew, honestly, throughout this entire season, but especially since the Georgia and Texas matchup.
I'll tell you. I tell you what I would do to the next set of fans that throw stuff onto the field. I would empty the stadium right then and there. You're all gone. Get out. Everybody out. You're gone. That's it.
A problem is that would require a show of strength, something that they're already refusing to do. When we have cheerleaders using their signs to protect their heads, when we have college students having to protect themselves with their hands, there is no other course of action to go besides empty out that stadium. But they'll never do it because they don't have the courage to do so, because that requires standing for something you believe in. And as you all know, people that get paid in college football typically don't do that.
Well, there's two parts to that, right? Especially if it's students. That's the easiest ones to discipline in the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Not only ban them, but you suspend them because they're at a school activity, acting out.
Right. Acting out.
Right. So acting out of the code of conduct. So you have the right to suspend those students. You find out they're throwing stuff on the field the way, this isn't, throwing roses on the ice or squid on the ice when the guy gets a hat trick. This is your dissatisfaction with what's going on during the game, that you're actually throwing trash on the field. That's stuff that gets you tossed out of a pro arena. If you're a college student doing that in a college atmosphere, if you're a high school student, you're getting suspended. I'm saying it right now. So if you're a college student doing this and you're caught doing it, that should be the case. You should be suspended for doing that. That would stop a lot of people from doing it, because what happens when you go home to mom and dad and explain why you're suspended for throwing stuff at a football game? I mean, a little bit different conversation. Now, some parents are going to come there and raise holy hell. My kid didn't do it. A lot of them are going to be like, really? You're a grown-ass man or woman out here throwing stuff on a football field. Really?
And Ashton Genty just scored a touchdown for Boise State.
Yes. So a couple of scores have updated. So we'll get the scoreboard back up. So let's polish off this Iowa State scenario here. Like I said, once again, they fall to Kansas, putting them at 7-2, one of the many 2-loss teams that were fighting for the playoff. They already fell to 17. So I anticipate they'll be in the 20s after the weekend. Now, even if they went out, do they have a chance for an at-large bid? I think the only path they have is to sneak back into the conference title game and win. To me, that's their best path. I don't think they have any other chance.
Yeah, because they got 2 conference losses.
Yeah. And back-to-back weeks. You just can't.
Yep.
Just can't have it.
Yeah.
But the lose to Kansas is way more damning than last week.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Texas, last week it was like, okay, we could see that possibly happening to you. But the Kansas loss, when Kansas only had 2 wins coming into this, and they're a tough out. We're not saying Kansas is the Kansas from 10 years ago where they had 1 and 2 wins. Everything was also a blowout. This Kansas team has lost a lot of games, and they've been tough losses. They weren't getting blown out every week. So they weren't exactly an easy out. But nevertheless, they get beat by double digits at Kansas. an unranked team that only had 2 wins coming into this game is going to be a lot more damning than anything else. Moving on. Talk about teams in the top 5. Well, we had a couple of them go down today. One of them was everybody loves to say it, the U. Well, the U tonight is holding an L. Because plain and simple, all right, they got beat by Georgia Tech.
Yep.
28-23. And Georgia Tech didn't have exactly the most beaming offense today. It was methodical. Wasn't exactly electric. They were explosive. But it was the Georgia Tech defense. 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. There was a lot of key stops in this game. Cam Ward had good numbers. No turnovers other than a fumble. He did have a fumble in this game that he lost. But overall, Miami, who's a better team, right, who came out there and still found ways to move the football, goes out and loses at Georgia Tech. How does this shake up the landscape in the top 10 for you guys? I mean, it's Miami's first loss, so they're not out of the playoff by any shot. They're probably still going to win the ACC, but this is a little bit of a blemish. This is going to put them in a weird seeding as we go forward.
That's right.
Yeah, I think this is sorry, Greg, go for it.
Oh, go ahead, Brock.
No, I was going to say, I think this is a massive blemish on Miami's resume. I mean, maybe I'd be biased here, so I can admit to that. But I did not have Miami ranked as high as everybody else did. I thought that there was multiple glaring failures within the Miami Hurricanes, quite frankly, team that had been overlooked due to sheer luck throughout this season. Miami was 9-0 in record only, which is, to be fair, the only thing that counts. But when you start looking at their games and breaking down, everything that went down in those games, you start seeing that as much as Miami could have been 9-0 as they were, they could also have had at least 3 losses on the schedule as well. Kind of going back to my rankings, I had Miami at number 6, actually, instead of number 4. And I think they're going to drop out of the top 10 in general. When you look at their schedule this season outside of Georgia Tech, we have a game at Cal that they should have lost before they had a massive, ridiculous comeback. The Virginia Tech Hail Mary is still something in dispute in the minds of the Hokies. They were on upset alert multiple times this year at Louisville. Had to deal with Duke last week. And then even which game was it? There was another game that was fairly close. I already mentioned the Virginia Tech game. So like I said, as much as they could have been 9-0, they could have been 6-3 with relative ease. And the way they lost to Georgia Tech too, I think, was the biggest indicator that this is not a team that's serious about contending for a national championship. Georgia Tech could not pass the ball today at all. They came into a game with a quarterback that literally could not throw the ball. Whenever they had to throw it, they had to replace him. And yet they were still able to dominate the rushing attack despite Miami knowing exactly what they were going to do. Georgia Tech called 3 plays yesterday. Inside run, a jet sweep, and a read option. And they ran all of them to perfection. And Miami could not figure it out for the life of them. To go into some statistically about this game, both quarterbacks combined for 99 yards, Haynes King and Aaron Philo. King was somehow 6 for 6 passing, despite having a massive shoulder injury. But the true story goes into, look at the rushing stats. Haynes King, 93 yards. Jamal Hayes, 83 yards. Hayes was averaging, I believe, less than 50 yards a game for the past 3 games before today. Singleton, 34 yards. Cooley, 26 yards, so on and so forth. Even Philo had a 13 yards rushing. They're back at quarterback. Miami is not a tough team physically. They're not a good team defensively. And Cam Ward, when put under pressure, he's not a good quarterback. As a matter of fact, I think that he's going to drop massively in my NFL draft board rankings just because whenever he's put under pressure, he does not know how to stay calm in the pocket, make that one move at the throw. He starts dancing, his feet get happy, he gets off balance, and clearly this is the product of it, is that he doesn't throw with timing, he doesn't throw with accuracy, and he's not able to get the ball downfield in clutch moments. And that's why I think Miami, as of right now, they're still going to get into the playoffs if they win out. But should they pick up another loss, I think that's going to be wraps for the Hurricanes in 2024.
Greg, what say you?
I pretty much agree with what Brock had to say as far as what the problems for Miami were. And when we talk about Cam Ward and the NFL draft and all that jazz, I mean, I've had Cam Ward going in the first round. It's just because of the way that the NFL builds up the position, and they all want their 5th-year contract and all that other nonsense. But I really don't have any of these quarterbacks in this country rated as first-round picks. They're not quality quarterbacks. And again, last year, I mean, I said to Christy Love, well, apparently you got a quarterback in Chicago with the quotes, the air quotes. Gee, Caleb sure isn't playing very well for the Bears right now, is he? As a matter of fact, Justin Fields and Caleb Williams have very similar stats to one another for the 2 seasons. So again, everybody wants to put everything on the quarterback. They all forget the other positions, and Georgia Tech reminded everybody of the other positions today because that defense had the 3 sacks, the 4 tackles for loss. They were all over the Miami Hurricanes, and that was a hell of a good victory for the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Tech came out, played their brand of football, and took the fight to Miami. We've seen Miami several weeks this season take leads and blow them, fall behind and come back, right? They fell behind again today, but couldn't come back this time. Finally, there was a team that shut the door. Mm-hmm. You know, they were here earlier in the season. I got to see them here against USF. And in the first half, that game was way too competitive for what those 2 teams were. Okay, Miami was getting beat at one point in that first half, and they look like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah,
because they're the bully mentality. We're the you. We're going to beat up on you. We're going to do everything to you. We're going to trash talk you. You're not on our level. And when you're playing on their level, they have this, you're not supposed to be playing with us. We're the you. No matter who you are. We've said this week after week after week. You're playing in a day and age where very few people, very few of these kids, and I say kids because, yes, they're adults, but they're still so young in life. They're still kids, in my opinion. So these kids aren't intimidated by the big name programs anymore. They're not.
Nope.
Not unless you're a D2 school coming up to play the big D1 Power 5 programs. Right? They're not intimidated by that anymore. They're not intimidated by the Notre Dames. They're not intimidated by the U's. They're not intimidated by the Alabamas. You know, maybe when Saban was there, you may have had somebody that was, but not now. Not now. Everybody's going to come and say, hey, I'm going to go viral for beating you today. So you're starting to see that kind of play out a lot more. And that happened today to Miami. This team was not intimidated. They wouldn't be bullied. They played their brand of football for 4 quarters, and they walked out with the W. And Miami is the one going, we're in trouble.
Well, didn't the Yellow Jackets beat Miami last year as well? Didn't they?
Yeah, they did. That was when Miami was in that bit of a free fall. Yeah.
Yep. And Georgia Tech did the exact same thing as they did last year. They ran the ball right down the Miami defense's throat, and that's how you beat them. I don't care about these quarterback sacks that everybody talks about either. Pressure causes turnovers.
Yeah, I'll just to add, the hallmark of any championship team is how they respond after getting chin checked. The problem is every Mario Cristobal team since his time at Oregon and even back to FIU has never been able to respond when they've gotten hit in the chin. And it's just another glaring example of their shortcomings as a head coach.
Right, Greg, your Irish are putting up a 50 burger on the nose.
Yes, they are. and they would have put up 50 today against the Hurricanes too if it had been Miami coming up to visit this year. The Notre Dame defense is playing so damn well. It is just frightening to watch. Rolly Miles had 4 sacks, and he only had 3 to begin tonight. He's now got 7.
Yeah.
And Howard Cross III is off the field because of a leg injury.
Yeah.
And they're still putting up these numbers. I mean, they're just destroying Florida State has no offensive line to begin with.
And I've said that earlier in the year when everybody was whipping DJ's behind, talking about it was all DJ.
Yeah, no, it's not.
No, their offensive line is porous.
Yeah.
Okay. And now you see why when they lost Jordan Travis last year, their offense went in the tank. Okay. Their offensive line was porous. Okay. And it looks just that way. Okay. They can't protect, they can't consistently run block. Okay. And you're watching them run out there and struggle with inside protection. They're struggling to protect the edges. Now we have a pick 6 here for Notre Dame. So 52-3 now, Irish over Florida State. These games are wrapping up. So we're going to hold off on putting the scoreboard back up until those 4 games are final or somewhere.
So let's go to the other big game then. Let's go to the Mississippi.
We're going to do that, but we've got a break coming. So we're going to take our break. We're going to get into those last 2 games. We're going to get into the statement. We're going to get into the look ahead. We're going to talk about, we're also going to talk about Navy continuing to win. We're going to talk about Army continuing to win because the service academies deserve the love for the years they're having this year. So we get to all of that. But first, we got a break coming. So we're going to take this first break, and we'll be back with more of the last word right after this.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build the cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gulf Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. # built for the
coach or coordinator does Brock want to fire now? Jeff will settle him down, trust me. Grab a snack and another drink. Let's get back to The Last Word, the show for the real college football fan.
He hasn't tried to fire anybody yet. He did kind of go a little at at Dabo. And I said it last week, Brock, you weren't here. I said, ever since you and Greg went after Dabo for that opening loss, he was on a roll. So
it all came to a crashing halt last week because the Louisville Cardinals pounded Dabo Swinney, and that's all that we cared about.
I mean, I would like to add one. I'm about to fire a coach and get to this Ole Miss conversation, but I would like to add. I want to use the word "rolling" to describe Dabo Swinney. When you look at the guys that they defeated since that Georgia game. App State, NC State, Stanford, Florida State, Wake Forest, Virginia, like that. Not really the resume of greatness right there for old boy Dabo. Just want to clarify that real quick.
You got to beat the conference opponents, unfortunately. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it is what it is.
I mean, it's not against him for having a weaker schedule. That's not his control. It is interesting to show that the only 2 times this season he has gone up against a ranked opponent, he has lost both times by double digits. And that will be my final statement when it comes to Mr. Swinney.
See, you should have saved that for later. Nevertheless.
A lot more people I want to fire, so don't worry.
Well, the Virginia Cavaliers are up by 2 points on Pitt right now.
Yes.
At Pitt. This is
I was going to talk
this
about
is a shocker.
Yes.
Narduzzi.
Penn State rolling over Washington 35-6 in Happy Valley this week, unhappy last week when they lost to Ohio State.
Which I've already I gave Brock and Josh Keatley 16 their immediate congratulations. Did I not, Brock?
You did. Yes, you did.
It was immediate. Congratulations. Yes, you beat Penn State. That was
we announced earlier it was 16-9 in the fourth, Missouri over Oklahoma. With a minute 26 left, Missouri has the ball in OU territory. Not deep, but in OU territory. Trailing now, 23-16.
Yeah.
Okay, so Missouri was leading. Now they're trailing. Okay. UNLV Hawaii 12-10 at the half. All tied at 14 with Air Force and Fresno State in the second. BYU with a slim 3-0 lead over Utah. And that lead is about as slim as Kim Cattrall in her prime. So,
oh yeah, but now all the young kids aren't even going to know who Kim Cattrall is.
I know we're dating ourselves. Okay, so let's move on to one of the later games. And boy, oh boy, Mississippi, Ole Miss tops Georgia. And it wasn't even in dramatic fashion. They straight handled Georgia.
Which is what I said last night on the college football forecast with Donovan and Bill. I said Mississippi's defense, is going to stand up to the Georgia Bulldogs, and that's exactly what they did. It was just an absolute defensive beatdown. Because I mean, you look 13 of 22 for Jackson Dart, not very good percentage wise. 199 yards, a TD, and a pick. That was fine and dandy. But Mississippi's defense just stood toe to toe and knocked around the Georgia offensive line, and that was the game.
Yeah, and listen, Georgia tried to do their normal. Okay, we'll fall behind and come back later. Not tonight.
No way. Not a chance.
Not tonight. They couldn't figure this out. So shame on them for thinking that you were just going to come out there and we'll fall behind. We'll be all right. We're their second half team. Not today. Not today. What you are is a 2-loss team now, thanks to Ole Miss. So Lane Kiffin looking fine and dandy right now. Over there in Ole Miss right now, because plain and simple, he knocked off the king right now. Kirby's the king. All right. Yep. So, nobody's ruled the SEC since Saban, but Kirby right now is the king, and they knocked off the king. So right now, everybody's talking about Lane Kiffin in a very positive light tonight. Brock, what'd you have to say about this game?
One credit to Lane Kiffin. Jackson Dart may be the starter, but their backup I think is better. Holy moly! I don't know his name, but all I know is that guy was throwing the ball with accuracy, which had his receivers in stride, was throwing them before they even came out of their breaks. For a second, Dart was hurt. I thought Ole Miss was going to roll Georgia even before Dart came back. Shout out to that guy. I think that he's going to be a special. I gotta get his name, but I think he's going to be a special quarterback in the future. I mean, when you talk about hitting throws that could develop to be NFL level throws, this guy had it coming off the bench in this game, did not feel the pressure at all, despite not having Trey Harris. And I think that was one of the big catalysts for getting momentum back to the Rebels, and they did not cede it for the rest of the game.
His name is Austin Simmons.
Thank you, Austin Simmons. Left-handed thrower, ball comes out hot, comes out on the money. Wow, just wow. With that being said, I would love to know what incriminating information or pictures Mike Bobo has on college football for him to continually be getting hired as the offense coordinator when he has shown time and time again through his stops at South Carolina, Auburn, Georgia, and as head coach at Colorado State, the man cannot call an offense. It is absolutely atrocious. Now, I understand Carson Beck may not be up to standard. I understand that the offensive line did get dominated today, but this is not an issue that impacted just one game. This has been a prevalent issue for quite a while, years actually. The guy is not great at calling plays at all, and you can directly contribute his play calling to the reason why Georgia did not win their third straight national championship last season, and why Georgia has had struggles throughout this season. Bobo needs to go, and he is my first coach that I'm going to fire today. Big win for Kiffin. I think it pretty much confirms he's not going to Florida with this win because of the whole if you make the college football playoffs, which Ole Miss is in prime position to do, you're not going to be able to go and recruit because you would have to leave early, and you're never going to leave early if you make the playoffs. So great win for Kiffin. Reestablishes the love people in Oxford have for him, especially after early season loss to Kentucky. And man, watch out for the Rebels. They are rolling right now. And with LSU losing to Alabama today, that just is a better thing for them because that head-to-head win that the Tigers have is now basically canceled out because of their overall record.
Yep.
Well, by the way, all tied with a minute left in the fourth. Mizzou, Oklahoma. Unless Oklahoma scores, they're headed for overtime out there. All right. So getting back to this, we talked about Carson Beck, right? Said he wasn't as good as his predecessor. He's not as good as Stetson Bennett. I've said that 1,000,001 times. Stetson Bennett.
I'm not sure what you're trying to edit.
So Siri is butting in. I'm trying to understand why everybody has this overly high opinion of him. Watching the games,
because he's a taller white quarterback, Jeff. He's a taller white quarterback, and that's the bottom line of all of this. If he wasn't a white kid, nobody would give a rat's ass about Carson Beck being the quarterback. I'm serious.
I'm going to say this though, okay? Because there's a tall white quarterback playing for your Fighting Irish, just a lot more mobile. Gets less respect to this guy.
Yep.
Okay. I'll take Riley Leonard over him.
Yeah. I said last year to Bill, I would take Riley Leonard when he was still at Duke.
And I'm not saying that because I don't like Carson Beck. I saw this when he was the backup to Bennett and he would play in games. I saw this in the spring game when a lot of guys were making a big deal out of his performance. I didn't see that. And I've watched every game so far, and I have not seen this first-round quarterback. I don't even see a second-round quarterback. I don't right now see a third-round quarterback. I see a quarterback that is a long-term backup.
He's got more interceptions than he does touchdown passes. So,
and he's not playing with a conservative program, and he's not playing with very little talent around him. There are a lot of quarterbacks that can go into that Georgia offense and put up points. He isn't one of them. So
I actually want to add, I disagree with you, Jeff, not because of the talent level at Georgia. I think that you throw any quarterback into this Georgia offense, and Mike Bobo is going to find a way to ruin their career. I think I think you put Carson Beck in a different situation. I think you see a better quarterback out of him, and that's why I think that he will be a higher pick just because I think there is a potential upside to him that's not getting drawn out of him because of the idiocy that is Mike Bobo. When you look at Carson Beck and what he's done, he does some things very well, and there's a lot of things he doesn't do well at all. And unfortunately, those things that he doesn't do well are blaring problems. The thing with that is you don't have a coordinator that plays to his strength. When, again, I've been hopping on this for 3 years now, and I'm going to hop on this till the day I die, and then 100 years after that. When did it become illegal to put a quarterback under the center anymore? I think that if you have Beck, turn him into
you're not the only one, but
yeah. I think you put him as a more traditional passer. I think you're gonna see a lot more progress of him instead of continually putting him in the shotgun and putting him as his gunslinger, and he's not one. And that's, I think, one of the big detriments to him so far.
I was at the USF Navy game today, and I'm explaining to all of the people covering USF why their offense looks the way it does. And I told them, I said, you have had 3 head coaches now. Okay, your last 3 head coaches every offense has looked the same. How do you get that? Okay, because every offense comes in there, they're all spread. Now, the last two coaches want to be high octane, no huddle, blah, blah, blah. All your runs are sideways runs. You have no power runs. Okay, you struggle to run in between the tackles. You struggle to run the football altogether this year. Okay, your one quarterback that kept your offense moving got hurt, and we haven't seen him since. And from what I'm possibly hearing, may be in the portal next year. So, when we look at USF's offense, it is a microcosm of what you see around college football. There's too much spread where the ball is going sideways. Okay, when you have smaller, faster defenses, the best way to beat them is to go right at them. Okay, you can run outside zone, you can run wide zone, you can do all that, but you still got to be able to run right at them. Okay, and if you can't do that, if you can't play on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage on the offensive line, if you're not getting movement on that defensive line to the linebacker level, and I sat there and I showed them, I said, okay, so we saw your offense. Now watch Navy's offense. And this is the most basic offense there is the triple option. But watch how their offensive line plays on your side of the line of scrimmage. And they would run a simple run, fullback dive, and you'd watch a sea of white overtake a sea of green.
Yep.
At the line of scrimmage. That's called movement. Okay, you haven't seen movement like that since Mogridge was your offensive line coach here. Okay, and even then you didn't get that much movement because you ran wide half the time. Okay, so yes, the shotgun and the spread is totally misused by most of these coordinators. There's way too much wide run, way too much finesse run blocking, not enough grunt moving people off the ball, firing straight at smaller defenses. They don't do it enough. So I agree with you, Brock. There's way too much of that. There's way too many of these guys considered offensive gurus that they're not. And so I agree with you. Now, getting back to the quarterbacks, right? We were talking about Beck. There's another guy very similar to him in the same conference, Nussmeier. Who would you rather have out of those two? Because they're mainly the same guy.
I'd take Nussmeier over Beck in a heartbeat.
I think Beck over Nussmeier. I think Beck over Nussmeier. Oh, hell no. No, no.
No way.
No. Beck's play is because of a detrimental offense coordinator. Nussmeier is because of their offense. I mean, Nussmeier is legitimately a system quarterback. There's no other way to put it. If you put Beck in those same positions that Nussmeier is, with the weapons that Nussmeier has surrounding him, Mason Taylor, Kyron Lacy, Emory Jones, Will Campbell, you think that Beck is going to be abysmal? Absolutely not. At least you can throw over defenders. One defender gets in 3 yards of Nussmeier and that ball's getting batted down. Are you kidding me? Garrett Nussmeier. Have you lost your mind?
Give me Garrett Nussmeier over Carson Beck any day of the year. Any day of the year.
See, I knew that was going to be the debate. I knew there would be a split amongst you guys. That's exactly why I asked that question. Listen, like I said, to me, they're the same guy. I don't see anything special of either of those two guys. And I know Nussmeier is a coach's son. We know Doug Nussmeier is his father, who's, of course, coach at the college level, coaches at the pro level, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. We know. Okay. Playing the game is different from family lineage. And what you're seeing from Nussmeier in LSU's offense, you saw they finally scored a touchdown with 11 seconds left in the game here. They're getting handled by Bama. Bama's going to 7-2. LSU will officially be out of the playoff talk after the night. So there won't be any Brian Kelly's doing any dancing in the locker room and doing 360 videos with his players talking about playoffs. There won't be any of that this year. There won't be any of that magic in the Bayou. So I'm really looking at what we're seeing right now from Georgia and saying, you're still alive in this, even though you got these 2 losses. So you can't afford loss number 3. Loss number 3 doesn't give you a chance at all. And you still, because they're Georgia, they still have a chance with 3 losses. However, I don't believe the way things are going right now with all these 2 and 3 loss teams that they're going to get in over somebody unless it's because they're Georgia. So
Well,
that's something we got to talk about going forward.
the Bulldogs get to host the Volunteers next week, and that Volunteer front is exactly the same thing that they just ran into with Mississippi today. That front seven for the Tennessee Volunteers can stone you to death. And if Carson Beck is going to be in trouble yet again, and the Tennessee offense, I mean, they pounded up the yardage today.
Yeah. So I like to add, when it comes to Georgia and their probability to make the college football playoff, they have an easy win against UMass. So we're just going to count that as a dub for them. No, I mean, unless something catastrophic happens. But even if you get past Tennessee, Georgia Tech is looming right around the corner, right? And Georgia Tech may not be, the best team, but man, they sure are. Oh my goodness! Sorry, we have an update from the Missouri-Oklahoma game. Missouri recovers a fumble to take a 30-23 lead with less than 20 seconds remaining in the game. Brett Venables, we're going to talk about you a little bit. Just want to give you guys an update. But going back to it, Tennessee, even if they beat Tennessee, they all play Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech is a tough team physically to handle. If we could see a potential where they could go 2 losses in the season, we could potentially have 4. And I think that when you look at the way Georgia has responded to them getting hit in the chin, it hasn't been the best. Yeah, they did have that massive almost comeback against Alabama. Sure. But when the going got tough, it was Alabama that made the plays at the end to win it, not Georgia. When you look at Georgia throughout Kirby Smart's history, they have needed a massive breaks time and time again to achieve their biggest wins in program history. When you look at that first national championship, Alabama was missing 2 starting wide receivers and I believe 2 starting quarterbacks in that game. And Georgia was still had to struggle in the end to win it. When you look at the SEC championship last year, that was a team on paper that was not Alabama was greatly inferior to the Bulldogs, and yet Alabama won. I remember the Peach Bowl in 2020 when they needed a bunch of things to go their way to defeat Cincinnati. This has been a pattern time and time again. And when you're talking about a team that's going to have to win at least 2 of their final games against Tennessee, against Georgia Tech, just to make it into the playoffs, and then at that point, they might not even be in the SEC championship game, which would mean they would have to win 4 straight in the playoffs. I don't see them doing it at this point with this roster and this coaching staff, and that is going to be a very troubling truth for Bulldog fans to have to swallow.
Oh, that's all fine and dandy. I love the fact that the Bulldogs suck, the Crimson Tide suck, LSU sucks. All of these SEC teams, they all suck. The Boise State Bulldogs, however, are now 8-1.
Boise State Bulldogs?
Broncos. I was all upset because of the Georgia Bulldogs. Don't get me going. But the Broncos, yes, they win 28-21 over the young Nevada youth team there that they've got in Nevada. But Ashton Jeanty had another 209 yards tonight, 3 touchdowns for the Broncos. And I don't care. He is the Heisman Trophy winner for this year. He is the best player in this country, bar none.
I mean, he's not the Heisman Trophy winner this year, but, that's neither here nor there. I think it should be noted to add that along your list of suck, you'll probably add in your Penn State Lions, your Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You can probably add in Ohio State at this point, if these are the criteria that we're going to go with people sucking. And, hey, maybe this is the byproduct of having conference realignment, is that we're having much more quality games in season. But
no, this is the NIL. This is the NIL talking. Because these smaller schools are getting just as many kids at their schools now as the Alabamas and the Georgias always get. They're getting them. And these schools are winning. They're winning.
I also think you're looking at a different landscape, right?
Yep.
When people, once again, we're talking about what NIL has kind of done, is take that program prestige and knock that down about 3 levels in recruiting. Because before, you can go in there and say, Alabama's in the house, and people would go sit up straight. What? Alabama's here? USC's here? Now it's like, yeah, what are they offering? Okay, so I think the prestige of the program has kind of come down some. Unless you got, unless we're talking about Saban being in the house,
He's gone. Don't mention Nick Saban. He's gone. He's history. He's on College Game Day. That's what Saban does now. So why talk about the Saban days? They're over. They're done.
Well, that's my point. Those days are over. You don't have too many guys. The fact that Kirby Smart can come in a kid's living room, a guy who's got a couple of natties now, and it don't matter, right?
Nope.
It don't matter. What are you offering my kid? You ain't offering that? Okay. Well, we got this offer from Miami. We got this offer from LSU. We got this offer from Maryland. Maryland's offering us some collective money. You got that? You ain't giving us that? You're going to give it to somebody else? Okay, my kid's going somewhere else. Okay, so the NIL deals have kind of taken a school prestige thing and bumped it down a little. Because now if I can get money, no matter which school it is, I'm going to take the money.
Oh, no, I also think that a lot of these 4- and 5-star kids are realizing that, there's 7 of us in my position that are coming to Georgia, and if I'm not the 1 or 2 guy, I'm not playing. I was a 5-star, but I'm not playing. Well, you better go to a school where you were going to get the time then. And because the NIL money is there for them now, it may not be as high as what it could be at Athens, but boy, I'm going to take my money and I'm going to be on the field. And that's why the very good programs that we used to say Alabama and Georgia are now good programs only.
Well, we got one more matchup to talk about before we get to the statement. Okay. And of course, how about those Hoosiers, baby? Undefeated still, 10-0. Indiana takes out the Wolverines in Indiana, not in the big house, but nevertheless, they got the job done. Everybody was saying, wait till they play Michigan. Wait till they play Ohio State. They're beating everybody they put in front of them right now. And once again, Curtis Rourke, not the most flashy numbers, but effective. Effective. He got them to win 20-15 over Michigan. So Indiana's top 10. They're in playoff mode right now. They're at 8. They should rise with the 2 teams ahead of them losing. Do they make top 5 after this?
They should.
They should be because they should still be ahead of Penn State. Even though Penn State was higher this week for whatever reason after losing to Ohio State, Penn State is still going to be a playoff team with just the 1 loss, but still, Indiana's unbeaten, folks. They are undefeated. Nobody has touched that team. And until you can knock off those Hoosiers, the Hoosiers deserve the respect that they've earned on the football field this year. This is not the basketball school that everybody remembers of Bob Knight. This is a football team that Cignetti has built. He's got those 13 transfers from James Madison, plus the other transfers that he brought in as well. And those kids play great football.
Well, I think they're behind Penn State in last week's rankings, even though Penn State did lose, because they hadn't beaten anybody that they believed was respectable enough to put them ahead of Penn State compared to who Penn State beat. But now that they've beaten Michigan, and yes, Michigan is 5-5, who's had a very tough schedule. They are Michigan.
That team deserves to be 0-10, but that's okay.
They are 10-0, nevertheless, with now a signature win over the Wolverines, the defending champions. So there's 2 parts to this. We've talked about the Indiana part. We're going to continue to talk about that. Let's jump over to the losing side of this real quick. In Michigan, 5-5. Did they make the right choice at head coach?
Yes. I think Sharon Moore has proven himself to be an excellent head coach when he has talent around him. But when you lose the amount of players that he lost, from last year to this year, you're going to have a drop-off. I don't really – when I look at Michigan's schedule, I don't see a loss on there that I can classify as being outrageous. They are 5-5, but they've also had to cycle through 3 quarterbacks. it's hard to replace JJ McCarthy. It's hard to replace Blake Corum. It's hard to replace 3 members of your offensive line. It's hard to replace, multiple defensive pieces, especially in your secondary, when Will Johnson hasn't been as healthy as he's been, when Mike Satterfield, who was the best nickel corner in college football last year, is gone. I don't like. I'm just saying, your only losses, you have 5 losses, yes, but your losses is to Texas, who's going to make the college football playoff. You lost on the road to Illinois, who's been a premier team this year. I mean, it may have not be ranked, but even Illinois' losses are even less worse than Michigan. You lost to the number 1 team in the country to Oregon. You lost to the number 8 team in the country to Indiana. And you lost on the road to Washington. That's not, in my opinion, these are not terrible losses. And then you start looking at their wins. They were able to defeat both Michigan State and Minnesota in the rivalry games. They're 5-5 right now, despite not having anything resembling a proper offense. And you also had to lose your defense coordinator to Jesse Minter, who went to the NFL and who is coordinating right now one of the best defenses in the NFL. So I think with all those losses, I think they made the right choice. Sharon Moore understands the culture. He has beaten Ohio State before. He beat Penn State on the road before. He knows how to manage a game. He just has to recruit. And once he gets his players, then Michigan will be right back to where they've been for the past 3-4 years.
Yeah, I don't think he's not deserving of a position. I think he deserves it. Right? He showed that last year. I do question certain things. Okay, I question the style of play. I think Jim Harbaugh's style of play was good for Jim Harbaugh. You, as a head coach, have to find your own niche. He has not found that. He's trying to replicate something that he coached under. A lot of guys, when they come up from underneath somebody, try to replicate them. It doesn't always work. Okay, we've seen that 1,000,001 times with a lot of guys that come from Bill Belichick's tree. Oh, I'm going to do like how we did the Patriot way was right, and they go and struggle somewhere because the Patriot way was great for the Patriot way. Oh, I coached under Saban. I can go out there and do things the way Nick does. No, what worked for Nick didn't work for everybody else. Okay, sometimes when you're a coach, you become a head coach, you've been an assistant under somebody, you can take elements of what you did somewhere, but you have to find your own program. You have to find your own niche. You have to find your message that relates to your players. Okay, that was one of the things I had to learn as a head coach. Is like, yeah, I was coached by a bunch of different guys, and I took pieces of what they did, but at the end of the day, my program had to be my program. They weren't playing for those guys. They were playing for me, so I need to get the most out of them the way I get the most out of them. So trying to be Michigan under Harbaugh, when you're the interim coach, you can do that because he's still there. He's gone. The fact that you couldn't get anybody in the portal, you haven't recruiting any quarterbacks worth a darn to help your offense is an indictment on this program right now.
And I send every high school senior in the country a letter that says Ann Arbor sucks. Don't go there. And it works. It works. It really does.
So yeah, listen, that's part of the problem. When we talked about the talent and then how much they lost. Trust me, coaching this year, I know what it's like to lose 25 seniors. It sucks, especially when you don't have the ability to use NIL and the transfer portal to reload the weapon. It don't work. It is a hard thing to coach, losing that many guys. I understand how that is. However, when you have NIL, when you have the ability to use the portal, when you have the ability, because you're Michigan, to pull out of that top 150, you got to do better. And that's part of the problem is they're not doing better. Okay, they got some really good players on that team, but those guys were there when Harbaugh was there. You're not looking at that team going, oh, the guy that got under portal really is helping them a lot. You're not seeing that.
No. And Virginia ended up beating Pittsburgh.
So big shake up there on the ACC. So once again, Dabo is sitting there sipping some, nice little drink right now, a little bit of brandy going, whew, I'm still in this bad boy,
True, but he's got to be worried considering he's got South Carolina at the end of the season.
So, yeah.
Not just South Carolina. They'd have to go up to Pitt next week. So
It's Pitt. That's not.
Yeah, but this Pittsburgh team has until the last two games here. They have been a very good team all year, except for these last 2 weeks. Just like Iowa State, it's a time of the year that these guys are losing that is surprising.
You're only as good as your last performance.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
my statement.
And BYU is now losing 14-10 to Utah in the Holy War. And if BYU loses tonight, Colorado is going to be a very happy bunch tonight.
Yes, they are. So
They are.
Washington State, Utah State just got underway. Not got underway. They're in the second quarter, early in the second quarter. 14-7 Washington State leads. So it's time for the statement, guys. So, Brock, who made a statement today, in your opinion?
Oklahoma, this state, has had a tumultuous history throughout its entire, course towards statehood. Its settlement manifest destiny. Bud Wilkinson, towards the end of his tenure, the life after Barry Switzer, his having success in college football playoffs. They've all been tumultuous, wild, and entertaining. You know what's not any of those things right now? The current situation in Norman. Oklahoma's loss to Missouri tonight is one of several glaring examples of why the Brent Venables experiment cannot continue past this season. Now, I know people are saying, Brock, shouldn't he give him some grace? This is only his third season. This is only his first season in the SEC. He has had some offensive issues. He had to replace his offensive coordinator, Jeff Levy, with Marcus Luttrell, Seth Luttrell, and Luttrell is now gone. And blah, 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 blah. Well, the truth is, no. Oklahoma is too good and can recruit at too high of a level to be this mediocre. And they've been mediocre for quite some time. Another statement would be, well, Brock, we did win 10 games last year, including a win at Red River over Texas. And I would say, and then they gave up their quarterback, who is now the quarterback for the number one team in the country, for a guy who they put their chips in and has not paid off since. These are the decisions that you have to live with, and these are the decisions that you have to die with. And there are multiple great coaching options around the league, including who I believe should take over for Oklahoma in John Summerall at Tulane. Lastly, to wrap this whole point up, Brent Venables is a great coordinator, and I'm sure he will find another head coaching opportunity another time in his career. But that time should not be now, as he has proven that he cannot handle the job that the Sooners require of him. And thus, when it comes to which coach I am firing tonight, it is simply Oklahoma head coach Brent Venables.
All right. Well, not only does he give us the statement, he tells us who he thinks is out. Okay. How about you, Greg?
I got to give Lane Kiffin his credit. I mean, it was not because of the Mississippi offense that they won today. And this is the thing that I keep telling people about the game of football. It requires the 11 men on both sides of the field to get the job done. What the Mississippi defense did tonight was beautiful to watch. They stoned Georgia. They just stoned them. And like I said, next week when the Volunteers come to Athens, if that front seven from the Tennessee Volunteers comes at you the same way that the Mississippi bunch did, there's loss number 3 for Georgia. That's it. There's the loss. Kirby's lost 3 times in a year. And again, he's still got to place Georgia Tech as well. So my dues go out to Lane Kiffin today because he didn't rely on Jackson Dart to do everything himself by his arm. And when Jackson Dart was injured and all that other stuff, and then Austin Simmons came in, yes, Austin Simmons played very well, 5 of 6, 64 yards. He had one 20-yard pass. It was just beautiful. That is good complementary football. That's what football should be, how football should be played.
Me, I wanted to say this one program made the statement, but to me, there were two programs that made statements today. The first was Indiana. I said, a couple of weeks ago, they made a statement. They were saying we're here, which you've heard from another program. Today, they said, put some respect on our names. Okay. They beat the Wolverines in the fashion where they didn't go out there and beat them the way they beat Nebraska. No, they went toe to toe with the Wolverines. They made it a slugfest and beat the Wolverines at their own game. How many times do we say that about a Michigan team? You beat Michigan at their own game. They were just as physical as Michigan today. They controlled the pace of the game like Michigan would. And at the end of the day, they had the ball last with the lead and iced it right in front of Michigan. Michigan could do nothing to stop it. Okay? So they said put respect on our name today. We're going to beat the mighty Wolverines, and we're going to take our respect. The other program that says we're here is getting closer to saying we're here in the college football playoff, and that's Colorado. Now, Texas Tech ain't a world beater. They were 6-2 coming into this game. They're very much in play for a conference title. And Colorado went into their house, spotted them 13, and said, we'll take it from here. Okay? We're seeing programs that are ascending go out there and get the job done. Colorado last year came out early and piqued our interest before they came back down to earth and did a really loud splat. Not so much this year. Okay? Now, they control their own destiny. They're in the driver's seat to the conference title game. They win, they're in there. They lose, they got problems. But nevertheless, they control their own destiny. What more could you ask for going into the final couple of games of the season? This right here is what you wanted to see from this program last year. And they couldn't do it due to injuries, due to lack of talent, and a bunch of other things. We've seen the improvement in Colorado. We saw their defense make plays today. This is not the Colorado team last year that the offense had to save the day all the time. Their offense kind of got stuck in the tailspin late in that game, and the defense made plays. They iced the game versus Texas Tech in Lubbock. So kudos to Deion in Colorado. Kudos to Indiana. Both of y'all making strong statements today. So it's time for us to start to look forward to next week, as we're getting very close to conference championship weekend. We're here in November. Next week is the middle of November. We're getting real tight. Right? Schedules are getting real tight, guys. Looking ahead to week 12. All right. So we got Tuesday night action. So of the Tuesday night matchups, Western Michigan, Bowling Green, both 5-4. Toledo at 6-3 takes on Central Michigan. So it's a tough matchup there. Jump ahead, though. I want to get to Friday night. 5-5 Washington, 4-5 UCLA. Interesting matchup there, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Houston, who knocked off Iowa State last week, will take on Arizona in Arizona. Then Saturday, you start to get into it. Okay, so Iowa State has to rebound versus Cincinnati or else. You guys agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Iowa State cannot afford to lose one more game this season, no doubt about it.
So we saw Pitt lose tonight. They're 7-2. They get the pleasure of hosting 7-2 Clemson next week. So Dabo has a chance to put himself back in the driver's seat for a conference title matchup with a win over Pitt next week.
or eliminate himself if he loses.
That's the other option.
Or South Carolina eliminates them at the end of the year anyway.
Or preferably both beat them.
Both.
Nice.
Both. Yes, both.
Yeah,
4 losses for Dabo? 4.
Yeah, I'll take 4. I don't lost in the full game, so 5.
5. Yeah. Yeah, that works well. We're fine. We're fine with Dabo losing 4 games this year, Jeff. You already knew this.
Also, shout out to Louisiana Lafayette. Just want to say that they are, I believe, 8-1 right now. So just great job to them.
Yep.
I remember when they were called University of Southeast Louisiana. Okay, so I'm still getting to this University of Louisiana Lafayette, University of Louisiana Monroe, because they were, when I was at Grambling, they were Southeast Louisiana and Northeast Louisiana. You knew exactly which one you were talking about. Now it's like University of Louisiana. Which one, Lafayette or Monroe? I'm confused. That whole thing just throws me off.
Also, how many? Just now that we mentioned these two teams, how many places in Louisiana are named after like revolutionary figures?
A bunch.
Like James Monroe, 5th President of the United States, Marquis de Lafayette, Louisiana Lafayette. I'm just saying, that's a lot. It's a lot of for a place that got bought by the United States like years after the Revolution, named after a lot of historical revolutionary figures. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, listen, the French wanted the British out just as much as the settlers did, so that explains it, right?
It does. That's a good point. Good point.
They helped. They helped quite a bit. They did some of the heavy lifting on that. We don't like to talk about it, but we got to give them their credit.
My relatives down in Baton Rouge in that area, they all fought against the British coming in 1812 and all that jazz as well. They don't like them, and that's just the way it is.
Fair.
So Alabama apparently has scheduled their bye next week. They host Mercer. So although Mercer is 9-1, I don't expect 9-1 Mercer to go into Alabama and get a win. So yeah, of course they schedule a nice bye week for themselves next week. Tulane, Navy, what a matchup that's going to be.
Ooh.
The midshipmen will beat Tulane.
No way.
Indianapolis. It's in Annapolis.
It's in Annapolis. It's in Annapolis. Tulane's got to come up north. Sorry.
Tulane is way too well coached. They're way too disciplined on defense, and this will be a statement game for John Summerall to show the nation why they've been sleeping on this man. This man had 2 10-win seasons, 2 of them at Troy with 2 conference championships, and at Troy. I want to make that very clear. One more time. At Troy, Tulane takes down Navy.
No.
So we just talked about Mizzou.
Yep.
They go to South Carolina next week. Big matchup there. They could do Dabo a big favor.
They could. They won't, but they could.
They won't. They won't. No.
South Carolina has been feeling disrespected by not being in the top 25 over Missouri, and they're gonna show the country why they deserve to be in over the Tigers, in my opinion.
Matchup you mentioned earlier, Greg. There will be no checkerboard end zones in this matchup. It is in Athens, Tennessee at Georgia.
Yep. And I think Tennessee gives Kirby his 3rd loss.
Tennessee's 8-1.
That's right.
They're 8-1. So yeah, it's gonna be a big one. Kirby needs that more than Tennessee does, that's for sure.
So right now the SEC championship would come down to Texas, and Tennessee.
Unless Tennessee loses.
Unless Tennessee loses, right? But Texas and Tennessee, that would be one hell of a battle.
True. But let's also not rule out A&M, because A&M has a clear pathway.
I still feel that A&M is a team that can defeat Texas on the 30th. I think that because of the defense can overwhelm.
So in that scenario, if Texas and Texas A&M win out, and then they meet in the final week of the season, and if A&M wins, would they then replay the game the following week in the SEC championship game?
Could be.
Could be.
Yeah,
Yep.
Could be.
Yeah, it could be.
So how about this? One of these teams is ranked. One of these teams isn't. They're both 7-2, and they meet next week. Arizona State, the Sun Devils, travel to Kansas State.
Yeah.
Both 7-2.
I know, but the Sun Devils are not going to have too much fun going to Kansas State. That is not going to be a fun trip.
Yeah, Sun Devils
You're
won
right.
today.
It's gonna be a fun trip back when Cam Scatterbo puts up 250 on the ground with 3 tutties against the Wildcats. I got Arizona State in that one. Kay Dillingham, that's a guy to watch out for. I'm not too sure if he's going to leave Arizona State because I believe he's a graduate of ASU, but
Yeah.
he is one of the premier coaches in this country, and they are rolling right now.
Yeah. Sun Devils were able to hold off UCF today.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna be an interesting matchup. Nobody's talking about it. They're 7-2. They're 7-2 quietly and unranked.
Yeah.
It could throw a whole monkey wrench in Kansas State's plans with a win in Manhattan, Kansas next week.
Yep.
All right. So speaking of next week, it's going to be time to see you guys next week. I will be on the roads. I will definitely be here next week. This was my last game on the road for a couple of weeks. So next time will be the week before Thanksgiving. So I will be here next week. Greg, you're going to be here next week.
Yeah.
Brock, are you on the road next week?
I might be actually. I'm actually checking my schedule as we speak. November. Yes, I will be on assignment. UNLV will be hosting San Diego State, and I'll be at Allegiant during this time. But check in with me at the game.
There you go. So I'll be here. Gunny will be here.
I'll be here
on assignment.
I'll be
next
here
week. Make sure you tune in for the last word next week when we're back. Also, tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure you're watching Moving the Chains. Ashmere will not be in the host chair tomorrow. She is actually out of town. So I will be sliding into the host chair, and it'll be myself, Thomas Brown, and Kaz is going to join us. So we're going to have a nice show in the morning. Greg, you'll be in there making your picks in the chat.
Yep.
All right, you're going to enjoy the standings. I got some interesting news for you in the standings for the picks for Moving the Chains. So we're setting your NFL day in the morning. So get your coffee, get your breakfast, get a nice seat, get ready to enjoy. As we
do you realize all of those lone wolf picks that I have had that have just gone down by that tiny little margin? It is just so frustrating to me how tiny a margin I lose these lone wolf games by. It is just so frustrating.
Greg, listen, there's no almost. It's either they win for you or
I
they lose for you.
I know. But
almost only counts as horseshoes and hand grenades, my friend.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
well, Brock, you still owe me 25 push-ups for your comment to me the other week there. And we need to see those. You use you use that 3-letter word to talk to me.
Hold on, the last 3-letter words I use. You gotta be more specific on that one.
It starts with S, ends in R.
Well,
starts
sir,
with S and ends in R. Yeah, don't you call me a sir. I'm a Master Gunnery Sergeant, you little me.
Well, guess what, Master Gunnery Sergeant? Maybe if your artillery shots were as accurate as your takes on Warren Sapp, you would be at that point. But, sir, it wasn't. So here we are. It's like maybe if Marcus Freeman could actually defeat a team in week 2, Notre Dame would be a lot higher in the rankings. But that's, again, maybes. And maybes count for, wait for it, nothing, sir.
Well.
Oh, you're gonna get a kicking.
You're not coming across the border I'm staying right here in the U.S. of A. So I feel safe and sound in my apartment.
Hey, by
And
the way,
I got a deadbolt.
mid-November 2026, I'm going to get Jeff Barnes, big ass, over the border to come to Calgary because it's going to be warm. It's going to be warm here. It'll be warm. We'll have a Chinook.
Is it ever really
Yeah.
warm in Canada?
Warm in Canada is subjective. I want to just add that.
No, listen, warm in Canada. We've been above 90 all of July and August this year. We were above 90 degrees all day, every day.
Listen, my guy Jeff Barnes, his knees. If it goes below 60, it's not happening. So you better
no. I'm fine with below 60. I'm fine with. I'm a moderate temperature dude. Listen. I grew up in.
That's right. You grew up in New York.
I grew up in New York. So okay, the winters, that January, February stuff was no bueno for me, man. That 18 degrees, no. The summer months, my family, despite my family being from the South, okay, spending plenty of summers in Virginia, okay, I hated being out there in the middle of the day. That was the worst. And now that I'm in Florida, I'm in hell for about 6.5 months when it is 85 to 90 degrees with humidity.
Up the
summer days where it's 96. Okay, yeah, no, bro, no. I'm actually happy when I go to Vegas. It's in December when it's like 60 something degrees. I love that, dude. Put a layer on, take a layer off. I'm just fine.
I'm actually surprised after, by the way, man, at a Hall of Fame semi-pro career, that wear and tear, especially the cold, does it hurt anymore? Like sometimes I have to say my
I hurt whether it's hot or cold. It don't matter.
No, the heat hurts more, Brock. The heat hurts more.
Interesting. For me, it's always been the cold. The cold has always messed me up. Interesting.
Man, that can be true with the cold temperatures bringing you on the aches in the knees, but when you're bone on bone, it hurts all weather. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. And I'm bone on bone in one. So, and the other one's starting to get that way too. My knees are both degenerative. So, I can think more basketball than football for that. Thank you, by the way. That was. Despite playing on AstroTurf, my knees hurt more after playing hard, on the hard ground than playing on the turf. But I will say,
I had shin splints thanks to the basketball court. I never hurt myself playing football that way. It was the basketball court that did me in.
I've broken the fingers on the football field. I've sprained enough ankles and knees on both basketball and football fields and courts. I sprained my knee playing football a couple of times. Luckily, didn't tear anything. I didn't tear it till well after my playing career. I tore a meniscus, but it doesn't matter. The wear and tear and the sacrificing came back to me. Calcium deposits in my shoulders.
Yeah,
so that causes a whole nother issue. So yeah. The body's taking a beating from all the sports I played, and that comes with the dinner. You play competitive sports, your body is going to hurt you later in life. Father Time is undefeated. Arthritis in the hands.
Yeah.
Like I said,
yeah,
that doesn't straighten. That's just how it is.
That finger's the same way.
Yeah,
it doesn't ever straighten out. But that was from jumping in the Marine Corps. I have no idea when I did that, how I did it. It never hurt me. And of course they wanted to put me in a splint afterward. No, I don't need surgery. It's fine. It doesn't hurt one little bit. My finger still moves all good and fine. Leave me alone. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can still make a fist. So that's
exactly.
That's the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah. And Brock, when I do come down to Vegas.
Oh, please. You're never coming down here ever. And you know it. You know it.
So yeah.
You don't know, but you don't know. Oh, and tomorrow will be the 249th birthday of my Marine Corps. Founded November the 10th, 1775 in Philadelphia at the Tut Tavern. I wish all the other veterans a very happy Veterans Day, and it's Remembrance Day up here in Canada. So on Monday. So hoorah, Semper Fi.
Yes. Semper Fi, Gunny. Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Veterans Day weekend. My father was also a Marine. So he would say there's 2 birthdays that he recognizes, his and the Marine Corps.
November the 10th is a birthday for every Marine, bottom line.
Yeah, so, I understand exactly where you're coming from this weekend because that was his thing. He was a Marine through and through.
Yep.
And I was fortunate that he got out before Nam because I may not have been here. So
That's the key.
So yeah. With that being said, it's time for us to get out of here. So next week we'll be back. Once again, make sure you're tuning in 11 a.m. here on Team MBS Media for Moving the Chains as we set up your NFL day. For the last word, for Brock Vieira, for Greg Rector and myself, Jeff Barnes, we're going to say goodnight, folks. We'll see you next week.